Tonight is VaYetze Kislev, Tafshin Ayin. This is Shir Kali with Rabbi Gafni for Parshas VaYetze.
A couple of you guys sit over here, okay? You guys move along a bit. There's plenty of room around here. Oh, you can stay there, but you two just move in here, okay? You guys move, maybe you move around. Okay. There's several people missing. Where's everybody?
Some people are still coming.
Huh?
Some people are still coming.
Well, why is that? So there's about 4 or 5 people missing. Anyway, it's like being a cowboy around here with a roundup, trying to keep everybody. It's some sort of a safe. All right, so we're turning to this week's parsha. Oh yeah, we're turning to parsha. When I picked it up, I pressed on that. You know about it, don't you? So we're turning this week's parsha, parsha VaYetze. At the beginning of the parsha, chapter Kof Ches.
VaYetze Kislev, Tafshin Ayin, Shir Kali with Rabbi Gafni, Parshas VaYetze.
Thanks. And so when I picked it up, I pressed it. And we're turning to Posik Yud Aleph, which is the second Posik in the parasha. So we're told how Yankiv Avinu leaves Beersheba in order to go to Haran. Listen, my boy, you must come on time. Okay, we kind of be walking in late. Maybe sit in somewhere where you hear properly. And he went out to a place called Haran, and that was the place where Lavan and his family lived. And Haran is not a very pleasant place, as is mashma in the words of our sages, that Haran is Harin Af Shalolam. It's the angry place of the world. In other words, the place of fury. Meaning the place of the Isgabrus Choychech, that he called the darkness of the clippers, and the Sitra Achra, a little bit like South Africa. It's where there's a great amount of darkness and Isgabrus, the clippers with Sitra Achra. Nonetheless, Yankiv Avinu, after being 14 years in the Beis Medrash of Shem VaYetze. That's what Rashi told us in the last parsha. So what do you guys think that 8 o'clock means 10 past 8? I mean, I don't understand. What happens when you walk in is that all the eyes and all the heads and everything turns away from the Divrei Torah. So Yankov Avinu has been 14 years in the Beis Medrash of Shem VaYetze. So you guys learn a few months or a few weeks in yeshiva. You think that studio a gold medal in Ruchnias or a fellow Begashmias. Yankov Avinu learned for 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem VaYetze. And he also, Rashi says that he didn't sleep, or he must have slept, but he didn't sort of make a whole business about laying down and sleeping during the 14 years that he was in the Beis Medrash. And so then we see that he Vayifka B'Makoim, that he met up at a place, Vayolin Shom Kivor HaShemesh, and he decided to spend the night there Yolen, ki the Shemesh had gone down, the sun had gone down, and Rashi tells us the sun went down miraculously. In other words, it went down ahead of time. Vayikach me'avnei ha'makoim, and he took from the stones of that area, vayosem mirashisov, and he put them, that is literally from the head of where he was laying down. The head of a bed is called the marashisav of the bed. Vayishkav mokimahu, and he laid down in that place. And then later on we see that he had the whole dream, vision of the sulam, of the ladder. And then later when he gets up in the morning, or when he eventually gets up, I don't know if it was dark in the morning, and then Yaakov Avinu said that Ochein Yesh Hashem b'mokim hazeh, that the Eibishter is in this place. And he said, and I didn't realize, as she says it, had he realized he wouldn't have slept Melchatchila, being as it was of divine place. And then he said, Ein zeh ki'im beis Elokim, this is the house of the Eibishter. V'zeh shah hasha hamayim, this is the gateways to the heavens. So Rashi says that he met up with a place, and we're not told what place it was. Rashi says, Lo yizkir hakosav be'eizeh mokim. We're not told what exact place. Ela b'mokim hanizko b'mokim acher. We have to deduce that this is really referring to our mokim, which is mentioned in another place, because it's written vayifka ba'mokim. What the base with the pataf means is like in the place. Not just he met a place, but he met in the place. So that's Kilu, we're mentioning a place which is already been told about or mentioned before. So therefore said Rashi, that's the Lashon, that's a mokim hanizka b'mokim ach, it's been mentioned. And what is that? He said, Hu ha-ha-Moriah. That is the mountain of Moriah. That was where Avram took Yitzchak for the Akedah. Shenem boy vayar esamokim merochoik. That Avram Avinu saw the place. Hamokim, he saw it from a distance. So Har Moriah, that's the mountain where the Akedah took place. There's none. So sit forward and pay attention to what we're talking about. And don't start looking at the clock already, we just started. That Avram Avinu, when he was taking Yitzchak to the Akedah, he saw it from a distance, Hamakoy, and that's referring to Ha-Moriah, and we know that that's later where the Beis HaMikdash was built, and that's where all the Korbanos were offered, Chulu. Vayivka, says Rashi, that it means that he met up with, Poga v'Yerichoi, that he met up or he came to a certain place. Rabbi Seina Pilshu Loshen Tefillah, but our sages said that it means that he davened. Yaakov Avinu davened. What did he daven? So he says, Lamadnu shetikein tefillas arvis. That Yaakov Avinu was matakein. He was the one who fixed the third of the davening, or third of the tefillas, which is tefillas arvis. Now Rashi already told us in Parsha Chai Sorah that Yitzchak was matakein mincha. He was matakein tefillas mincha. And that's written, VaYetze Yitzchak lasuach basodeh. He went out to pray in the field, and Rashi says over there that he went to daven. Suach can also mean to daven. And Rashi says malamed shetikein tefillas mincha. And also Rashi told us way back in Parsha Vayera that Avram Avinu also davened when he went out to look at Sodom. Rashi says that over there that Avram tikkun tefillas shachar. In other words, that all the three tefillahs were fixed by the fathers, and because the sun had gone down, and it would already become become dark suddenly. Therefore, Yaakov Avinu decided he had to daven a special prayer which his two previous fathers hadn't davened, and he was metakein. He fixed for everybody, for all the generations to come, the tefillas always. And then Rashi says that he had a miracle, Yaakov Avinu, that the land jumped for him. Pink to say was given by Eliezer when he went to Haran to find Rivke Meinu. Also, he had what's called kfitzas ha'oretz, that the land literally jumped, and he miraculously covered a huge amount of ground in a short space of time. Kivor Hashemesh. So Rashi says that it means that Shochar lo hachama pisoi, that the sun went down very suddenly, shaloi beinosai, not in its normal time, Kedei shiol sham, in order that he should rest there, because the Eibusha wanted that he should rest there, being as it was, as we see, mokim miyuchad, mokim of the Beis Hamikdash. Even though later on Rashi says that that was also miraculous, that he'd already gone back and he came back, and then the Eibusha brought the mokim hamikdash to him. But anyway, actually, yeah, it was mokim hamikdash. Now it says Rashi, VaYosem mirashi. So he took these stones and he put them at his head. So Rashi says, Ason kamin marzev. He made them like a thing around a roof, like a thing at the edge of a roof. Huh? Herbs?
A gutter.
Good.
Gutter.
Whatever. Huh? Gutter, right, yeah. Well, I don't know, that's a little bit of a harsh word. It's anyway, like a sort of, yeah, all right. Like a building with a place for the water to run around his head. Shaviv l'roishei, sheyore mipnei chayis roi. He was afraid, Yaakov Avinu, that maybe he might be attacked by harsh animals. The stones began quarreling one with the other. The stones quarrel. Well, this one says, Olai Yoniach Tzadik Es Reishai. This one says that this Tzadik will put his head on me. And the other one says, Olai Yoniach. No, he'll put his head on me. Miyad. So what's he able to do in such a case? Well, the stones are quarreling one with the other. Miyad asor HaKadosh Baruch Hu even achas. He able to turn them into one united stone. Zehu shenemar, afterwards, vayikach es ha'even asher samirot. Later, when he got up, Yaakov, he took the stone which he'd had at his head, and he put shemen on it with all hemshech of the story over there. So just a few psukim further, he picked up the stone which he'd had Rashi saw. So at the beginning it was a lot of stones, and then when he got up and he took it, it was only one stone. Wasn't it? If you sit forward, if you don't mind. It's not a drawing room meeting or something. Is Pamela, or it's turned into one stone. So Rashi says that the Eibusha made a nest and he put all the stones into one entity of a stone. So that's the shaila, what is that? I mean, that's quite a remarkable thing, that stones all quarreled. I mean, how do stones have das to quarrel? And what does it mean that they wanted that the Yaakov should put his head on them? And he must have put his head on one of the stones. So some of the Mephoshim say that what actually happened was that he put his head on one of the stones, and that's where he put his head. But then he had this marzei around his head, and they were all quarreling. All the stones in the marzei were all quarreling with this stone that Yaakov Avinu did put his head on. And I say it's much in the Gemara in Masechta Chulin in Daf Tzadik Aleph. But over there the Gemara brings the story and uses a very interesting expression. that the Gemara asks a kasha, and it says, Vayikach mi avnei hamokim, which mashma that he took several of the stones, and then it asks a kasha that Rashi is hinting at, Vayikach eso even. Later, when he gets up, he took one stone. Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, Malamed Sheniskabtzu Kol Oisan Avonim Lomokim Echad. Now we notice that Rashi quotes it a bit different. He says, Rabbi Yitzchak says that all the stones were all over the place when Yaakov Avinu came there, just like stones are in a field. What happened is when Yaakov came, they all joined together and came into one place. They all sort of collected into one area. V'kol achas v'achas oimes, and each one of them says, Ola yonir tzaddik zeh roisha. On me, this tzaddik is going to put his head. Now Rashi already quotes that differently, because Rashi says that they quarrel. In the Gemara it's not written they quarrel, it's written that each one said, I would like this tzaddik to put his head on me as a stone. And then the Gemara quotes a praisa, a Tana, and it says, Tona v'chula nivlo bi'echad, and all of them were swallowed by one, or they were all swallowed into one. Rashi doesn't quote that Lashon. Rashi just says that the Eibishter made them all into one stone. And here the Gemara says that they were all swallowed by one. In other words, that one stone, took a very active role, and it swallowed all of them, and therefore they all turned into one. So the Meforshim in the Ein Yaakov and the Gemara, they say, why did they have to swallow them? Because there had to have been one stone where Yaakov put his head, as we pointed out, and the other stones were all, they were all jealous that he did put his head on that stone. And therefore Rashi says that would imply that there was a mariva, that they were actually quarreling, that they were upset by this stone having got the great schus to have Yaakov put his head on it. So therefore they quarrel. That's the way Rashi learns the Gemara, that they quarrel, and therefore this stone decided that it would just swallow all the others, and if it swallowed them, then everything would be quiet. In the middle, all the stones around the head of the Maazeh, they all disappeared into this stone. And therefore, when Yaakov actually got up, there was only one stone, and he didn't have around his head anymore. So also the Gemara doesn't mention that he made this Maazeh. That's not mentioned in the Gemara. And the Gemara also doesn't mention that he was frightened of wild animals. So that we have to get from the Medrash Rabbah. In the Medrash Rabbah, it's written that he was scared of wild animals. He was fearing the wild animals, and he made a Marazeh, and the whole story that one stone swallowed all the other stones, not mentioned in the Medrash. It's just written that there were 12 stones connected to Yud Bei Shvatim that he was going to bring into the world, Yaakov Avinu, and that some of them sort of got together, they sort of joined together, and they stuck together in pairs, or not the Lashon of the Gemara. So it seems that Rashi is like combining the Medrash and the Gemara together, and he learns that that what it's written, that they each one said, that was in the form of a quarrel. It was like a mariva, and therefore Rashi says that miyad asoan HaKadosh Baruch Hu evanachas. The Eibishter made them into one stone. But here the Gemara says that one stone swallowed the others. So Rashi wants to make peace. Rashi says that if one swallows all the other, then you haven't really made peace. Now Rashi learns that the purpose of the Gemara is to say that there occurred here a actus, and instead of everyone saying, I want this and I want that, everybody came together, and everybody was united together in one inyan, and then Yaakov put his head on all of them, and they all were apart. But if you say that one stone swallowed all the others, then it appears that one stone got his way. He was like the main factor in the whole thing, to the point that he was almost what you might call hard to get. He's not going to allow anybody else, and he swallowed the other stones. So they became one.
It wasn't around his head, it just became a stone that was under his head?
Yeah, they became one stone, but he swallowed them.
I'm saying they all became under his head, or they were still surrounding him?
No, under his head. Yeah. Israel, Lefizeh, it comes to us that there was a certain sort of disagreement, or I might say unpleasantness, that one stone swallowed all the others, and he could have got his way. Therefore, Rashi says, no, it's much more mustaber to say that the Eibusha made peace, and he made them all into one stone, meaning that from the many they became like a real actors. Imagine if one swallowed the others, it's a bit sort of difficult to learn that it was mamish actors. And particularly that there was a quarrel, Rashi learned it was mamish a quarrel between the stones. And therefore he learns that the best thing to say to Eibusha, okay, we could suggest by way of possibility, why would Rashi mention that the Medrash says that he was frightened? It's a very fascinating thing I saw in a Sefer, what they bring down, it's written in the VaYetze Kislev. You heard the famous Musa Sefer, the VaYetze Kislev. It was written about a Rabbeinu B'chaye. There were two Rabbeinu B'chayes. There was a Rabbeinu B'chaye that he wrote the VaYetze Kislev, and then there's a Rabbeinu B'chaye that he wrote the Pirush HaTorah. It's two Rabbeinu B'chayes, isn't it? Well, you're so weary and tired the whole day, a younger clever man. All these young sprigs, and they're all tired and they're all worn out. What's your problem, my son? Rashi learns that they became one stone altogether, but they was frightened at the beginning of, so the Rabbeinu B'chaye, who wrote the VaYetze Kislev, he says that you must never be frightened of any other creature or any other thing apart from the Eibusha. And he brings down that there was some great man, I've forgotten his name, he brings down that he was in a desert on his own, and he heard that there were chayas around. So he was very afraid. And all of a sudden he said to himself, how dare I do this? How come I'm afraid? I'm not going to be afraid of the Eibusha. Why should I be afraid of other things apart from Hashem? And he brought on himself a emes yiras Hashem, and he was afraid only of Hashem. And all the chayas, they disappeared, and they never bothered him the whole night. As they bring to Rabbeinu B'chaye. So therefore, some people say that Yaakov Avinu also, he was aware of the fact that he was afraid of these chayas, but that wasn't good. And therefore, in this whole inyan, putting the ma'azev around his head, he'd have to use stones. Well, we'll soon go into it, but there's a very special thing about stones. And Yaakov Avinu, with that, he was mamshir, yira on himself. There was by yira, that he had fear, Yaakov Avinu, fear of the Eibusha, fear of the Beis Hamikdash, fear of Hashem. And having changed in that way, therefore he had no longer any fear of the chayas, and therefore he was able to sleep only on one stone. And the ma'azev was absorbed into the one stone. In other words, that the ma'azev was only just a temporary indication of a weaker madrega in Yaakov Avinu, temporarily for the moment, but immediately he gained the upper hand, and therefore he had only one stone they actually slept on, and the sleeping was for the purpose of seeing this great vision of the Surah. So comes along the intelligent reader, and the intelligent reader said, well, it makes very wonderful sense, and it's a tremendous inyan. Oh, what on earth does that mean? That stones were quarreling, and stones wanted that the Ashmish should put his head on top of them, and then they all became absorbed into one stone. Either they were swallowed by the master stone, or the Eibusha made them into one stone, and they were all very pleased, as you might say. Everything was sholem, v'shalva. How you talking, David Kaseh? And we notice in many places in Rashi's Pirush ala Torah, even though he says that he's only talking for the Ben Chomish Lemikva, for the boy who's only 5 in his beginning to learn Chumash, and even though he says he's only coming to tell me the simple Pirush and the simple Pshat of the Pesukim, Rashi tells us sometimes really amazing and out of Teva type of things altogether, and he just quotes it with absolute simplicity, just goes further, without any explanation or writing, please look up in some great authority that explains this to you better. It just leaves you entirely to accept that with great simplicity, that that's the situation. And here we see all sorts of amazing things happen. Yaakov Avinu goes out, and he's been for 14 years in Beis Shem V'Eva. I know it's a heck of a long time for a man that had to go out and start off his whole movement in life and his whole setting up the Jewish people with the whole thing. That's a long time for a man who was still not settled in life, as I might say, to learn. 14 years. That's a heck of a long time. Afila will say that people in those days lived longer and they were more powerful, weren't they? Huh? I told you I don't want you sitting back, if you don't mind. Because when you sit back, yes, you go back. You understand? Everything just goes back. But if I ask yourself the Shaila, that's an almost miraculous thing. And then he comes out of Beersheba. It's much more that he was in another place, but he left from Beersheba. And then he comes and he immediately meets up. Rashi makes it even more amazing that it actually went all the way to Haran, and he came back in the Beis Hamikdash, followed him and came back, that he meets up with Har Moriah. Yeah, all of a sudden he's in the place of the Beis Hamikdash, and then all of a sudden the sun goes down. And just imagine if the sun goes down before its time. It would cause the whole stratosphere or atmosphere to get into a confusion. All the other heavenly bodies would have to move accordingly. They'd have to wait, or they'd have to, I don't know what they'd have to do. To stand aside and let the sun change his whole, course for quite a few hours. That's a tremendous miracle. Rashi mentions that, by the way, the sun went down and it became evening, and therefore Yaakov Avinu was metakin tefillas. Obviously, he took the opportunity to introduce Einiv and Tefillah L'Kol HaDoros. And then this amazing simple with the stones, they were quarreling. There come along certain people, and they want to say that certain great Meforshim would say to L'Derech and others, they want to say, listen, you've got to take this a little bit, carefully. You can't understand it too, literally, because after all, stones don't have da'as, and they don't have da'as to quarrel, because if you quarrel, then you certainly have an opinion, and you stand on your opinion, and that causes you to clash with another person's opinion. In other words, you've stood on your mind, on your das very clearly. Don't find that, how do we find that in stones? So he wants to say that really everything that's written in the Medrash, that everything's got a mazal, as it were, which enters it all, has an effect on it, and those mazalas are like spiritual entities, Lamaila, which are having an effect on the physical body. You don't have any grass or blade of grass that doesn't have a mazal, which tells it to grow. Makibarim gives it a clap and tells it to grow. It's a famous Medrash brought all over in Chassidus. He timed this, that what happened was that the Eibishter gave Bamorim in the heavenly court. The Eibishter gave an order. What happened was that order was passed over to those mazolis. And those mazolis are spiritual entities that do have das, and they pushed the stones around based on their das, and that looks as if the stones were quarreled, but it was really the mazolis that were quarreled. That's what he said, and others go b'derech zeh. Comes along the Maram Prague in his Sefer Gur Ari al Torah, and he's got a most amazing lengthy piece about this. It's mamish tremendously lengthy. Before we mention what he says, very bekitzer, because we can't mention mentioned the whole Arichet. Other people, the Ibn Ezra and the Rashbam, and quite a few others, they want to say that it was Melchatchila, only one stone. You don't have any problem. There's no worry with the whole pshat, how many stones there were. Did they become one or they didn't? That all he did was take one stone. Vayikach mi adnei amakom. He took from the stones of the place. He could have taken one. You remember that's what he did, Melchatchila. And the Ramban also goes b'derech. And he said, therefore you don't have the whole problem. So ein hanami maybe b'derech pshat. Deitani you don't have to have the whole problem. But there is such a Gemara and there is such a Midrash. So they want to say, oh, that's drosh. And if it's drosh, then you're not mechuyev to, to sort of be mefalfel too much in drosh. You just be careful what's of being pshat. Why does Rashi have to let himself into such a business? And therefore I say it was only one stone, Melchatchila, the whole thing wasn't a big row. Comes along the Maharal in Prague, and he attacks those people very, very strongly. And he said, somebody that does that, he's mamish, he said, he's making hefker out of Divrei Razal. He really goes very sharp at them. And he said, you must not do that, you must not say it. Chas v'sholim, that if the Gemara and the Medrash say that it was several stones, and it's several stones, not just one. And he goes ahead with the whole thing. He said these stones were real, and they did quarrel one with the other, and they did have minds, and they did know what they were doing. And he said that's all mamish kipshutei, simple pirush of the pasuk. So how does he get that? And he says you got to remember who you're talking about. You got to remember who is Yaakov. Who is Yaakov Avinu? So he says Yaakov Avinu is the third of the Oves, and he is the perfect and the perfection of the three Oves. They're brought down in the Zohar Kodesh and brought in Chassidus. And Yaakov Avinu he's what we call Sod HaAchdus. He was like the secret of wonders. Yaakov Avinu, and therefore in Yeshayahu or Novi, he's called Kadosh. Hashem is called Kadosh Yaakov. In other words, that the Eibush is the Holy One of Yaakov, which means that Yaakov is also a Holy One. You know what that is? He's a type of holiness which is almost like the holiness of Hashem. And if somebody who's completely and utterly holy, then he's completely and utterly withdrawn, he's completely away from anything physical, and therefore he's able to move into the level of Achdus, absolute unity, and he experiences the whole world just as Hashem Echad, how everything is batil, it has no metzias, and it's all niklal. In other words, he's a mumche in Shara Yichud Ve'emun. And Yaakov Avinu would have taught you the whole Shara Yichud Ve'emun in a few sentences. That's it. That everything is just Achdus Hashem. Everything is batil. There's no separate metzias, and everything is mamish elokus. Batil to the Eibishter. And that's Yaakov Avinu's whole metzia. And therefore, when he left Asia, and they considered he went to 14 years into Beis Shem V'Eva, and this is by Yaakov Avinu. This is mamish. That's his life. He just lives in the oil of Torah and of the inyan of Chachmas HaTorah and Bittul to the Eibishter. 14 years by him. This is just how do you call it, every day functioning. And if says the Maharal Miprag, somebody like Yaakov Avinu, he puts himself Melchatchila l'mayla mi the ribuy of the world. How to do it? He goes l'mayla mi ateva, right from the beginning. Everything he does, Melchatchila ribuy. And if Yaakov Avinu says you got to leave home, 14 years in Beis Shem. Then you got to go. You have to go. You got to go out to Haran. That's the Olam V'Tachlis. You go out into the most terrible place in the world, Haran Afshal Elam, the absolute fury of the world. And Yaakov Avinu goes out. Oh, how does he do it? He's mamish First of all, he meets up with the Beis Hamikdash, and he goes here, and he goes everything. The sun comes down. Everything is completely l'mayla and beyond the limitations of Teva. And it's just by him a normal zone. And then we see the whole parsha goes further. He puts up this stone and he pours shemen on it, and becomes a mokim the Beis Hamikdash. And he goes out there towards Chon, he sees this huge stone, just walks up to the stone, moves it, and all the other guys, how they call it, all the king's horses, they can't move it, cloud, but he can. And Derech Hagav, those are the Eitz HaHara, them stone over the Be'eya, Mayim Chaim, those are the Dina from the Nefesh Abamis and the Eitz HaHara. And this gives this completely removed it from the scene, and then we see everything by Yaakov Avinu is B'derech Zeh. Says the Maral Miprat Favuis, because Yaakov Avinu is Sod HaAchtas. If you live in Achtas and you live, everything is one thing with Hashem, and really there's no multiplicity, there's only the oneness of Hashem, then nature doesn't get in your way, because nature is an expression of the Hilem of the Achtas. That the Eibusha puts a Hilem on the Achtas, it makes everything look as if it's a multiplicity. That's in order to try the man. So therefore, wherever Yaakov Avinu comes, the nature begins to feel that he's arrived. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu, when he arrived in a place with a lot of stones, so the Gemara says, Nishkabtzu kol ha'avonim, they just automatically draw together. Yeah, they just all come together. L'makim echad. They all come into the inyan of an echad. And if Yaakov Avinu says, oh yes, here are these stones, yeah, they've all come to greet me, we'll just make them into a marzev. And then all of a sudden Yaakov Avinu says, oh wait a minute, a marzev, yeah, because of Chayas Rois. What was Chayas Rois? Yeah, Yaakov Avinu immediately reminded himself that there's no, by him, he doesn't have to worry about Chayas Rois. And if all of a sudden the whole marzev, yeah, it just becomes one Evan Achas. Now, if you look in Shara Yichud V'Emunah, the Alter Rebbe, when he wants to bring a dogma of how the Oisias, what the Eibusha gives, into every niva, which is the Chayas, which is Machaya, every niva, he brings a dogma from Evan. He brings a dogma from the Evan, and he says that the Arizal says that even in the Avonim, there's also Chayas Eloh, and there's also Am Shochef, and the Rebbe who keeps the Evan going. And then later in Shara Yichud, in Perek Zayin, the Alter Rebbe says over there that a stone is a very, very high thing. It's Aleph Ban. And he says that Shem Ban is a Shem Kodesh Po'elim V'Shalyonim. They say to Alter Rebbe. He doesn't say what Madrega is in Kabbalah, but he says it's a Shem Kodesh Po'elim V'Shalyonim. And he said the Aleph is the dictionary of Aluf V'Shal, how he's one. So Shem Ban, Al-Pi Kabbalah, means how everything becomes like a Metzias, and everything becomes split into Metzias. Evan is Aleph Ban. It's how the Ban goes back into the Aleph and becomes one. The whole multiplicity becomes one. That's Evan. And the whole Moshel in the Gemara is also from stones. And in the Medrash, and Rashi brings that down, that somebody who's on that Madrega, that Yaakov Avinu is, and that's his whole Indian, and even the stones say, wait a minute, we don't want to be like this anymore, we want to be the way we're really supposed to be. We want to be like we were before the Chet Adas, we want to be like it was at the beginning of the creation, and then we also had, we were different, we weren't like we are now. And remember, we want Olai Yanir Tzaddik. What's a Tzaddik? A Tzaddik is a person that he does exactly that. And therefore he brings the whole world into one actor. Precisely what the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach has been doing ever since he came to America. Probably even before that, for that matter. That he's been bringing everybody all over the world to realize that everything is one. Else is Hashem Echad. And in fact, that was what happened. And the Maral Miprak says, if you don't believe that happened just in the natural way, then he said, you're the one who's got to be checked out. He said, not Chas V'Sholem Rashi. As he's very sharp, the Maral Miprak. If you don't take Rashi, just mamish, bepashtet, then toive. And he really goes to town about those who say that really the pasuk meant it was only one stone, and there's a thesis like that in Chulin, and the Maral differs with the thesis. He says, oh no. So he really, is bold about this whole matter, which is surprising. Oh, but that's the union. And some of the other Meforshim who deal with the Maral, they bring other examples of where Rashi said similar things. Yeah, back in the with all of a sudden Rashi said that the earth made a sin, and the earth was supposed to do this, and the earth did that, the earth made a kal v'chema, and it did this, and it did that. What's the earth man? So they say no, that according to the Maral Miprag, all these things happened, that at the beginning of the creation, everything was able to make a kal v'chema, even the earth. Everything was full of umola ha'oretz daya. The world is full of daya. Vasad kan be'erech klal. That's the opinion of the Maral Miprag. Comes along the Alter Rebbe. What is one on the Alter Rebbe was the 7th generation from the Maral Miprag. He was a Masha Ainik, he called a Ben Achaben from the Maral Miprag. Wasn't it? The Alter Rebbe was he was a Ben Achaben for the Alter Rebbe from the Maral Miprag.
How many generations was this?
Is B'meila comes along the Meforshim, or those who support the Maral Miprag, and they say that this is what we call the Sod HaAchtos. In other words, that the whole Indian of Yiddishkeit, and the whole Indian from Yaakov Avinu, and the whole Indian of our fathers, was to bring into Gilui the Indian of Achtos. And therefore, the Gemara tells them, that when Yaakov Avinu was just about to leave Begoliah upon him, the world, so it's written that all the sons gathered around him, and he was worried that maybe they weren't exactly how it should be. What did they say to him? Rashi brings it in Pasha V'Yachid. So they said to him, Avinu, they said to him, our father, just like you only have in your heart or in your mind only the Indian from Echad, Kach ein b'libeinu ela Echad. Just like you have only Echad, Kain b'libeinu ela Echad. We also hold. Either say, how come Yaakov was able to have a supposition that maybe they weren't on the same level as him? So it says that he was Yehuda Ilah and they were Yehuda Tatuah. Oh, but really, sof, those are the same actors. It's the same actor, just on a different level of Gilui. So we see from that Yaakov Avinu's whole union is Ein B'li Boy Ela Echad, and the sons, the Yud Beis Fatim, Ein B'li Beinu, albeit on a slightly lower level, Ela Echad. So therefore, comes again the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe in Torah and later the Mittler Rebbe. Tonight is Yom Simcha, and he's Yom Geula. And the Mittler Rebbe in Torah's Chaim, and the Mittler Rebbe is Masbir that the Inim von Avonim really refers to letters, the oisias that the Eibishter creates the world with, is also brought down Shara Yichud. And what Yaakov Avinu did was that all the oisias come out of Malchus, and like we said, they all split into what's called interdivision. They all go into all sorts of vinyanim, and they all bring about a whole multiplicity of different nivroim. Those different nivroim look to be, as it were, a of multiplicity, of a really mitzad emesa gilui of Hashem, who dwells in them and who dwells even in the same source where all the oisias went out. For all betalim, either bittul hayesh or bittul b'matziyet, that they're completely betalim, and that makes the inyan echad. In other words, that the Alter Rebbe explains that Yaakov Avinu's inyan was to elevate all the letters back into Malchus, and even higher. He said back into Chochmah, and even higher back into Keser, Mamish, into the Ein Sefer L'Maylam, and therefore to bring about Achtus Gemura B'chola that everything is bottled and everything realizes what's its real function. How is it all part of the Actus of Hashem and the Yichud of the Eibishter? And that is the whole basis of the message of the fathers to the world, and that became the Ikya Inyan of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Inyan of giving of the Torah. Like the Alter Rebbe brings down in Perek Lamed Gimel in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that a man should see that Kila is only one mitzvah. Ba Chabakuk ve'hamidon, all the Tariag mitzvahs, he stood them on one mitzvah. The Hainu, the Inyan for Actus Hashem, and that a man should look as if he's got only one mitzvah, that's the Inyan Actus Hashem, and all the other Tariag mitzvahs automatically follow. I think it's not the Alter Rebbe clear in Perek Lamed Gimel. And Derech Agav, Perek Lamed Gimel is Lag Ba'ima. Lag. This in Perek Lamed Gimel is a reference to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai with the ganze Arichas Bador. It follows Lefise that that's what they always, that's what Torah, every in Torah is to bring to your bittul, to Actus, to Hashem Echad. And I put down in the famous work of the Mittler Rebbe, the Shara, what does he call it? Not the Shara, I've forgotten the name of it. Anyway, not the Pirusham, there's another section. What's the one he wrote about Shema Yisrael? Huh? I can't think. Anyway, he wrote a whole book only about Shema Yisrael. It's the biggest and most difficult of all the works of the Mittler Rebbe. No, it's not Shari. Shari Yichud is simple compared to that. So anyway, the Mittler Rebbe indicates that the whole Yesod of Yiddishkeit and the whole Yesod of Vayid is Avaya Ech. And that was Yaakov Avinu, and that's this Maisa with the stones. That's why they all gather together, and they all become Batil to the Inyan Actus, and the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe go with the same line as the Maral Miprag, but they just develop on it in more detail, Al Derech HaPnimius. And it's well known that the Maral Miprag, he already began to be Megala the Inyan from Pnimis HaTorah, but he did it in a way which was still in Lashonis Klolim Yoter, and in Musogim, it was still moving to the people who had learned their Pnimis HaTorah. And the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe, they brought the Inyan from Pnimis HaTorah, mamish into Revelation and into Gilui, but that's the Inyan of Eben, the Inyan from Oisias. Therefore, we see that the Hemshech of this whole Meister that happened here with Yankov, we know, leads into Inyan of the Beis Hamikdash, and it's stressed that immediately arrived at this point, he davened a prayer, and he was metaking Tfilas Arabis davening. And then later on, Rashi says that the Beis Hamikdash is a mokim tefillah l'kol ha'amim. Rashi brings down that what was this Inyan of Ein Zeh Ki'im Beis Ha'elokim V'zeh Shah HaShamayim. Rashi brings, so Rashi says V'zeh Shah HaShamayim. Rashi says Zeh mokim tefillah. That all the tefillahs go up to heaven through the Beis Hamikdash, or Medrashe Beis Hamikdash Shel Maila, Mechuvan Keneged Beis Hamikdash Shel Mata. That the Beis Hamikdash shot is in Ruchnias and the Beis Hamikdash shot is in Gashmis, as it were parallel, one Keneged the other. And then Rashi says that this was a fearsome place, and the Targum Yenis and the Targum Onkelis, they say that Leis Dain Asar Hedye. This is not an ordinary place. In other words, it's not a weekday place, not an ordinary place, nor it's a holy place. What we see Lefise, and it's much in the Rambam right at the beginning, when the Rambam brings down all the halachas of the Beis HaBechira, the Rambam brings down a big, lengthy statement about how the Avram Avinu made the Akedah, and he did this and that, all in the same place, and then he eventually comes to that's where the Beis HaBechira is now. The whole big long passage of the Rambam, which is not usually his way. of talking that way, the Rambam. Ela is coming to show us that the Beis HaMikdash is mamish a holy place, that the etzem earth and the etzem place itself became sanctified to the point that leis dein asar hedye. It's not an ordinary place, klau. And what is so unordinary about it is that that's a mokim tefillah. It's a mokim of daven. So I sought to show them why is it, and we say in davening every day in the morning in the Rabbeinu Shalom after the Akedah, we say right at the end, we quote the pasuk from Yeshaya Novi, and we say that all the peoples are going to come and offer korbanos in the Beis HaMikdash, ki beisi beis tefillah yikorei l'chol ha'amim. That my house, which means the Beis HaMikdash, is a place of prayer. The Beis HaMikdash, I don't know if people pray so much in the Beis HaMikdash, but it's Beis HaMikdash, a place of prayer. Yikorei l'chol ha'amim, for all peoples of the world. This is the place of the prayer and the place of tefillah. And also, if you look in Shlomo HaMelech's prayer when he was initiated, the Beis HaMikdash, there's a huge prayer that the Shlomo HaMelech prayed after he built the Beis HaMikdash. Most amazing things, one of the most amazing passages in the whole of the Tanakh, the tefillah for Shlomo HaMelech. And over there, he says the same thing. That he says that the Hanochri mi eretz rocheicha yovo el hamokim hazeh v'yispalo v'yanehu Hashem. That the Abbes will answer him if he'll daven. Even a goy will come to the Beis HaMikdash, won't he? Huh?
Yes.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that you agree. And you've got to realize that giving up is not a Chassidus midah. Did you understand me or not? Thank you, my son. B'meileh, everybody is invited to the Beis HaMikdash to pray. What did you do? The Beis HaMikdash was full of Kohanim, and you couldn't get in. You had to be tahor. Cholil, if you're Tommy Mays, you'd be Chayav Kodesh, all sorts of, mind-boggling things in order to get into the Beis HaMikdash. The Kohanim are very jealous. They don't let people in with the whole business. And here we say, no, the Beis HaMikdash are based tefillah. And it's Yikorei l'chol ha'amim. Shlomo HaMelech says clearly, he's made this as a mokim tefillah. And he said that even if a goy will come here and daven, the Abbes will answer. We should do it. So we see then that the whole of Yaakov Avinu's founding of this whole place has got to do with the Inyan and davening. And just by the way, it's very interesting that we should never know about it, but on Tisha B'Av, we should never know. It's brought down a minhag. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch. The Rama brings it down. It's brought down a minhag that you should put a stone on the head on Tisha B'Av night. Right? You should put down a stone on the head. So there are more rights over there that we should put down a stone and sleep on it instead of a pillow. And he says that that's what Yaakov Avinu did when he came to the Beis HaMikdash. He put down a stone under his head and he slept on it. And he said, in order to remember the Beis HaMikdash the right way, you should sleep on a stone. The Ramah, it's put down in the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch, and he quotes this Gemara. Yeah, that Yaakov Avinu put his head down on a stone. That's a pillar. That's mamish a dova nifla. Well, from that we see that this whole inyan of the stones has got a lot to do with it. There's a whole inyan here that the Beis HaMikdash is it's a inyan from a stone. It's a inyan from an evan. After that's the right way to remember the Beis HaMikdash, to have a stone on your head. So I don't know if nowadays people know how to do that, If on Tisha B'Av you slof in bed, then you should slof gesundheit. However, there is such a Ramah. There is such a Ramah in Shulchan Aruch. So it comes along Chassidus, the great Meforshim, the Derech Pnimius, and they say that Yaakov Avinu founded here the inyan of Tefillah. So what's the inyan of Tefillah? Well, this inyan, and therefore Rashi is Mavaya, that what happened was that the Eivusha made all the stones one. In other words, that this was a Kilu Min HaShamayim. It was like a tremendous chizuk that the Eivusha was giving Yaakov Avinu before he goes out to a place like Haran. Now you have to remember that Haran is Chutz La'aretz. Haran is not Eretz. Yitzchak Avinu was Oila Tmima. Rashi told him Rashi said he's not allowed to leave Eretz because he's a Oila Tmima. Avram Avinu, albeit went to Eretz Yisrael, to Chutz La'aretz, and he came from Chutz La'aretz. But once he was in Eretz Yisrael, Ika Inyana was Eretz Yisrael. The Ilu here we see the Yaakov Avinu went out for 22 years, Mamish into Chutz La'aretz. So it's well known that the Alter Rebbe held, and the Mittler Rebbe together with him, that they held that there was a sword in the inyan of being in Chutz La'aretz until Mashiach will come. There's an inyan in Chutz La'aretz and a mile in the Aveda, afke in Chutz La'aretz, over Eretz Yisrael. And therefore there's a famous story. Listen, you guys, we'll have to, I'm prepared to call the shir off, if that's what you want. But I don't want this grinning and schmeichling one at the other during the class. Okay? If you want to schmeichel and grin, then you can do it up outside. So, Chutz La'aretz, the Alter Rebbe brings over there in Perek Lamed Gimel, that he says that Chutz La'aretz is more like klippes with Sitra Achara. And he said, Avira is Tomei, even the Avir of Chutz La'aretz is Tomei. And he said that there's Ein Simcha Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ki Yisron Ha'oyer Abo Men HaChosheh. That he said the greatest Simcha by the Eivusha is when you turn the darkness of Chutz La'aretz into light. You take a look and you'll see. It appears from that the Alter Rebbe is being mafarish. What happened? That he went with Ramen Levitevsky when Ramen Levitevsky went was Oila to Eretz Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe went with him across Europe, and he intended going with him to Eretz Yisrael. And all of a sudden, the Ramen Levitevsky had a dream, and they revealed to him from heaven that he must tell the Alter Rebbe that he must not come with him to Eretz Yisrael. And some people say that the Alter Rebbe himself dreamed the dream afterwards, that he must not go to Eretz Yisrael, and Ramen Levitevsky told him that he must, his inyan is in Chutz La'aretz. And if we think carefully about it, the whole Chassidus grew in Chutz La'aretz, in Russia. That the inyan, the Baal Shem Tov was from then, he was what was Medina's Ruslan. And it's called by the old historians, they used to call it Reisen. In other words, that he would, the Baal Shem Tov Dafki came from the market which is called Russia. The borders changed and the blessings changed. And the whole growth of Pnimis HaTorah was Dafki in Chutz La'aretz. You say, wait a minute, the Arizal, he was the one who started off the growth of Pnimis HaTorah. The Arizal was Dafki in Eretz Yisrael. He was Dafki in Chutz La'aretz. He came to Eretz Yisrael, and the Emes Gilui, the Pnimis HaTorah of the Arizal was Dafki here in Eretz Yisrael. Dafki with the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, he also came. He came from Damascus, especially to Eretz Yisrael, Al Pi Ruach HaKodesh, with the whole region to meet the Arizal. And that was Dafki here, that was the Ika Gilui, the Inyan of Pnimis HaTorah, was here in the whole, Mamish in the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. But the Inyan from Chassidus, the Baal Shem Tov, but later the Alter Rebbe, that was Dafki in Chutz La'aretz, and the Alter Rebbe was told he has to stay Dafki in Chutz La'aretz. And therefore all of our Rebbeim, none of them ever even were Ma'ale Aladas that they should come to Eretz Yisrael to settle. Absolutely not. And then there was a famous chassid who he came to the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek and he said he wants to go to Eretz Yisrael. I said, what did the Rebbe say to him? He said to him, Mach do Eretz Yisrael. Well, you have to make here Eretz Yisrael. You have to make in Chutz La'aretz. You have to make the Madrega of Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe's got a whole beard, Toshinun, there's a whole long sikha from the Rebbe. What did the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek mean with those words? But the simple pshat is that there's a new type of Eretz Yisrael which is made in Chutz La'aretz. And that's an Eretz Yisrael, Naila B'Yeza, very, very high and very, very powerful Madrega, Naila B'Yeza. And that was Indian, what Mashenkin, Rav Mendel Livetevsky, the people who went with him, their Indian was talking Matzadei's at the time, or their Indian was talking Eretz HaKodesh, and therefore they talking about oil here. Or saying Kanamakim to go into the whole Arichas and be married. Why that had to be that they came to Eretz Yisrael? There was a very high kavanah of the Iker was the Biru in Chutz La'aretz. And therefore the Rebbe never came to Eretz Yisrael, despite all the bakoshes and all the how do you call it, the begging and that of all sorts of people that he should come. Lapel, the Rebbe never came. And so the same thing, Yankov Avinu goes out to Chutz La'aretz. 22 years of a long Biru in Beis Lavan, and it's brought down in Ayin Beis and in other places. And the Rebbe is also married about it that Yankov Avinu prepared everything for the Geulah Shleima. So that by the time he was finished and he came back in towards Eretz Yisrael, he sent to Esav, Vayishlach Yankov Malachim. He sent to Esav, Ulai Kulei Haiva Ulai. Maybe Esav has been busy while he's been away. I was given the answer that he hasn't been busy at all. He's been busy with his Yetzer Hara. And everything is just the same as it was. Yankov Avinu was very broken by the whole mass. You do it. The Pnimis Hador. And it took generations to get Esav ready. But the Rebbe said he's ready. The Rebbe said on many occasions that now he is ready. And the only thing to do is to tell him the truth. And if you say the emes to Yankov Avinu, to Esav, if you say to him the emes, then he will be makabel. Or if you say to him the hebrew of the emes, and you put a label on it that is the good of the world, with all sorts of baba mises, with sipuri, sheker, then you bring terrible destruction. That's what's happened ever since the so-called Zionism came into the world. But the Friedrich Rebbe warned against the Indian of Zionism, the Indian from Zionism, there was the kosher, the klippa, haki kosher, Rahmanin. And therefore all those people who start going with the so-called Datiim, Liumim, with all these sort of weird combinations, well, they're only going to bring trouble. Rahmanin Lam. That's only the Indian from Torah Shleima and Torah Sema. Therefore, Yankov Avinu, his Indian was based tefillah lekora lekolam in Chutzlah. So what's it the Indian from tefillah? We see that the Eibishter came to him, and the Eibishter put all the Avonim together. However, Yankov Avinu established the Inyan from Tefillah. He decided that he's got to be Metakein Ayin from Tefillah. The Rebbe once said, in one of the early Sikhs, the Rebbe once said, if you're going out somewhere, and particularly going to Chutz La'aretz, the first thing you have to do is make sure you daven properly. You've got to make a Siddush Tefillah. I said, that's what Yankov Avinu did. Yankov Avinu, first of all, he fixed a new Inyan in davening. He made a whole new davening, and he fixed a Inyan in Avedis HaTefillah, Tefillah's Arbi. What the Alter Rebbe brings in Lekutei Torah and Shir HaShirim, that Tefillah's Arvis is a gewaldige Madrega, a tremendously high Madrega. That's because it's in the dark. That's because it's in the darkness. Ishapcha chasheichel in hoira. Ishapcha, the choshech Chutz La'aretz. Into light with the whole Inyan. And I felt, what is tefillah? Or tefillah is it you take the Avnei Hamokim and you make him into one. Pink to see Yaakov was helped by the Eivishter because there. Why? Because he showed that's what he wanted. The Father, the Eivishter to be given. Yeah, the Tachlis HaSachar, the Tachlis HaShleimus. He started davening. What is davening? That you take all the world that looks like a ribui and a tremendous mess and a balagan, as they use the expression over here, but that's not a nice expression. Yeah, they take it and they get it in davening. The whole inyan is to take it all together until you reach Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And the Rebbe, the Mitzvah Sefer, the Talmud Tzedek, he says that the whole inyan of Sheirish Mitzvahs, that Tefillah is Shema Yisrael, not Shemoneh. That the Ike is Shema Yisrael, and that the Ike inyan Gilui Atzmus is in Shema Yisrael. And if you say Shema Yisrael the right way, then your Shemoneh is B'der Mamela, a good Shemoneh. And they bring that. And they state that in Barichas, Sheirish Mitzvah Tefillah. And that the Yichud Elyon in Shema Yisrael is higher than the Yichud Elyon in Shemoneh Esrei. Yeah. Just, there's different little sort of Pirushim there, and Inyonim of that's the close Ayinim. Therefore, the whole meaning of Tefillah is to take everything and turn it into actors. And what is Even? Avonim is the oisias. Even is the words that you say. They're called Avonim. They're called letters. And they're called stone. Because they don't have any chayes to their own. You've got to put chayes into them. Pick the Zivi Yaakov, he made all the stones quarrel. He made them into Levitic stones. He turned the world into a Levitic plate. And that's what the inyan of Tefillah. Tefillah is that you elevate the world and you make it into Havaya Echad, the Sod HaAchta. And that was the inyan of the Alter Rebbe, the Alter, Imri Bina, that's the Sefer of the Bittul Rebbe. He wrote a Sefer called Imri Bina, but in that, he is Mabdi the inyan of Sod HaAchtas, and that's probably the most difficult of all the Sforim of the Bittul Rebbe, and it's probably the most detailed and most, it just deals with the inyan from Shema, just Belisa. Because that is the immediate inyan of the Gile Oteres Chabad Lubavitch, is to turn the whole world into Achtus Kipshutai. There's no Matthias of the world anymore. And therefore, the Mitzvah Rebbe, he didn't know the whole Matthias of the world. It's Mefursa. He didn't know the difference between one coin and another, or one star and another. If you showed him $100 or a $50 or a $20, he didn't know the chilik. And this was it to have the Ben Zela, Lozer. I was brought down in the Gemara, Masechet Psochim, right near the end, that there was a person that he was called Rabbi His name was Rabbi Menachem. A state of him that the Gemara said that he's a Benom Shel Kedoshim. He's a holy person. He's a son of holy people because he doesn't know the difference of one coin to the other. He's not the Gemara. They stated the Gemara. So the Mitzvah Rebbe, he didn't know the hebdo from one coin to another. Well, several stories indicate that. And yet, nonetheless, when businessmen came and asked him, Shilas, what to do in the world, he was able to answer. We can decide. He don't know the difference from one coin to the other. Because he was higher than the world. He was Hashem Echad. And when they told me he needed to know something about something, he knew it for Telefamel. Because you look downwards, upwards, down into something, then you know it much different. How did he get that? Through the inyan from going upwards, through the inyan of Sulam. Yeah? That's what Yaakov saw. The Zohar Kodesh says, Sulam dot Shleisa. This is the davening. Shleisa means in Aramaic davening. In other words, that the whole inyan of Tefillah is a sulam. You go up stages and steps, and you get up to the top of the sulam. Sulam Mutzav Atzu, Varesha Megia Hashamayma. That's the inyan of VaYetze Tefillah, and that's what the Mitzvah Rebbe brought into the world with such amazing toiker, such amazing strength, that he wanted to turn all the Chassidim into Oivdim. All the Chassidim should be Oivdim, and they should all daven, barichas, and they should all be devoted to that great inyan of turning the world into Havaya Echad Alidei VaYetze Tefillah. There's some very great people like Tzadikim and others that They can sort of make it very quick. Of so-called ordinary people are going to come through the Aveda of Tefillah. They've got to work hard and every day bring the Gilui of Hashem Echad into their life. And that's through the preparation of Sufi de Zimra and afterwards the blessings of the Shema, the VaYetze Kislev. And they say you come into the ability to say Havaya Echad in the right and Emerson and the right and Emerson Pneumistica fashion. And therefore it's brought on that when you get to the Mittler Rebbe, it's brought down that once a shamash of his, like somebody was used to serve the Mittler Rebbe in his house. As he came into the room where the Mittler Rebbe was sitting, and the Mittler Rebbe said, I want you to go out into the street and ask people what they say about me. You should ask in the street, what do people say, what does the world say about me? That's what he told him. So he was rather puzzled about it. Nonetheless, he went out into the street, and he came back a short while later, and the Mittler Rebbe said to him, no, what are people saying? So he said, Rebbe, you should realize that people out there say that Beklau in Pnimis HaTorah, Nista, that's what the people call Pnimis HaTorah. In Nista, the Torah, you're amazingly great. You're mamish, tremendous. Nobody like you. Or in Nigla, don't know so much about that. They don't hear from you about Nigla. Or in Nista, they say you're tremendous. So the Mittler sort of nodded his head and he said, yours. He said, the truth is, had I devoted myself to Nigla the way I should have, then he said there would be nobody in the Geonim, in the Beis all the Bati Medrash would be able to know where their hands and their heads were. In other words, I would have just mowed them all out. He said, now what should I do that I wanted? Why did I devote myself so much to the Pnimiyas? He said, what should I do that I wanted? That when two Chassidim will meet one another on the street, that they should say one to the other what is happening in Atik and what is happening in Arik. You ever heard of Atik and Arik? You haven't? Wow, what sort of Atik are you? But Atik is Pnimis HaTorah, Pnimis HaKesser, Pnimis HaKesser, and Arik is Chitonius HaKesser. Very high Madrig, higher than the Spirit. Yeah, the Torah in Sefer is L'mayla Mikol. Oh, aren't you brilliant that you smiled and you sneezed in such a way that everybody laughed at you. It's really great. It's from come to it that what does Atik and what does Arik mean? What is it at times? Atik means it's separated off, it's moved out. Now what did the Maral Miprak, what did he say about Yaakov Avinu? He was separated. He wasn't in the whole Halabaloo. He was separate. He was moved out. Kodesh. And the same with Arich. Arich means it's also moved out. So the Mittler Rebbe said he wanted people to be so separate that when they would meet up, they would say one to the other, what's up there? What is happening in that particular madrega? Comes along the Rebbe, and the Rebbe brings down in a place that there's another girsa, how do you say it, another text of that sipur, that instead of saying that I wanted that when two cities would meet, they would ask what's happening in Atik and what's happening in Arik, or he would want them to say what's happening in Yehuda Eloah and what's happening in Yehuda Torah. So what is Yehuda Eloah and Yehuda Torah? After. Now the world is really nothing in the world. And if you look at the beginning of the Shara Yuchah from the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, what did he say at the beginning of Shara Yuchah to Emunah? Lohovin, Mashu Mavua B'zay HaKodesh Eich, Sheshma Yisrael Hu Yehuda Eloah, U'Baruch Shem Kved Malchusei Hu Yehuda Torah. That's the first little heading at the top of the whole Shara Yuchah to Emunah from the Alter Rebbe. Yehuda Eloah, Yehuda Torah, that's what you're going to be in. That, and the Rebbe says in a letter that maybe that's the first part of the Tanya. Maybe you should learn that even before you learn Sefer Shel Beinoni. That's the yesod of everything. That's the basis of the whole story. And that's what the Mittler Rebbe wanted to achieve. And his son-in-law, the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, But he said that the whole body of the Mittler Rebbe functions from Chassidut. And that if you were to cut his finger, there wouldn't run out blood, but there would only run out Chassidut. In other words, if you cut his finger, you'd only get Chassidut. You hear that, Levi Luan? He had a fact. That's pretty amazing guy. And therefore, when they held the Mittler Rebbe in the prison, when he was sick, the truth is the Mittler Rebbe was genuinely ill, because he'd been in a place on the way where it was terribly cold, and he was very frail physically, and he got a cold. He got a very bad chill, and they never really got the Mittler Rebbe out of that chill. The truth is, and that's why months later, that's what they say. Some people say that was like the physical weakness that caused his passing from the world. Because Yud Kislev, the Mittler Rebbe, didn't live to the first actual one. He wasn't there by the first Yud Kislev. The first Yud Kislev, he was already starting from the world on Teske the day before. And that's why it took quite a bit of time for Yud Kislev to be known as a Yontav, because it was like, a very big hefsek at the beginning when it first occurred. So therefore they say that the Mittler Rebbe was sick the whole time, and he was. And they were worried because this whole thing was the whole thing was a bluff. It was a plot. The whole fact that they arrested the Mittler Rebbe was really a plot. It was a very unfair and infamous business. It wasn't a real accusation of any sort at all. It was some people who were jealous of the Mittler Rebbe and his family, and they got all the Russian authorities into anger, and they arrested him. It was all a lot of bluff. And so they were worried that if anything happened to him, and he God forbid, he died or something, so then there would be a big inquiry, and it might come out the whole bluff. So they were very interested that Mittler Rebbe should be okay, and they brought in these doctors. So they put one doctor after the other, and he didn't seem to get better. They couldn't figure what on earth is going on. So they brought in a Jewish doctor, Ayir. They brought him in, and this Jewish doctor came in, and he examined the Mittler Rebbe, and he went out to these guys and said, look here, I'm sorry, you've got to do here with a very remarkable rabbiner, and he doesn't function in the normal way at all. And if you want him to get better, the only thing is you have to let him say his Chassidus. If you let him do that, then he'll get a lot better. So they had no choice, but they had to let him so they will let him say it. He said, oh no, he won't say it into the air. He has to have Chassidim, he has to have his followers to say it. So they had to let in a minion of the Chassidim, and the Mittler Rebbe immediately said a Maimon Chassidus. In the middle of the jail, with everything, immediately said a Maimon Chassidus. But Kachoya, Kama Piyomim, until he actually got out. They let in people to hear Maimonic Chassidus from the Mittler Rebbe. And he improved, his temperature went away, everything improved, he became another man altogether, because he said the Maimonic Chassidus. Didn't he? In Zamir Lefisa, we see that Chassidus, oneness, turning all the stones into one, that has to be your Leviticate, that has to be your what is turning all the stones into one? What that means, bring Mashiach Papoyo. That is the Nakuda now. And that's what the Rebbe is working at. All these Bati Chabads and all these people throughout the world. It's all turning all the stones, making them all gather together into one immense stone. And they're all being gathered together, they're all playing part, they're not just swallowing one stone, it's not swallowing all of them according to Rashi. But they're all joining together into one immense oneness throughout the world. And that's what we've got to work for. And so you've got to get out into the street, and you've got to start praying. We want Moshiach now. And the Rebbe said, you mustn't be afraid, people are going to be makabel. You say, oh, if I said that, the people are going to get angry and they're going to be embarrassed, I'm going to be embarrassed, and even worse. No. The Rebbe said, if you talk about Mashiach nowadays, people will be happy. They like it and they'll be makabel. But ain't mokim lachshosh into that type of thing at all. All you got to do is just start talking, even if you're not sure of yourself. But if you start, then Hashem will help, that it'll come out and it'll be poyo. All had it good, all the. So that's the Indian that nowadays the Goyim have also started getting onto the bandwagon, and that's the Beis Hamikdash. A Goy, he's not chat to Koyanim and Levium and to Korbanos, and Levi can come along to say, listen, he can be, he can how do you call it, in his own amazing way. He can also make his own little Hashem. Yeah. And the Rebbe said that the Goyim have to learn about Atas Hashem. They have to learn, not the way that you didn't know, but they have to know the Hepech of Avodah Zarah. They have to learn to be Mavatel Avodah Zarah. And therefore, Shlomo HaMelech, when he built the Beis HaMikdash, he said even a Goy can come into the Beis HaMikdash, a place of prayer. In other words, the Beis HaMikdash, Be'ikah, is elevating, taking everything and making it into Hashem. This is Tefillah. And that's what the whole Indian of the Yankov Avinu, when he came out, he met up with Beis Hashem. Ein zeh ki im Beis Hashem. And Beis Hashem means you've made stones into a place where the Eibush to dwell. Zeh Shar Hashemayim. Through that we will just fly up into the infinite heavens and Shemayim with all the Inyanim, and it remains Shabbos and Manucha L'chayei. Amen. Okay, so what we're going to do now, where are you, my, we're going to say L'chaim together now. You got some Mazenas there, you got some glasses? Okay, give around the glasses to the guys. Give the glass around.